Hey guys, Luke from Holistic Survival School here. Hey, today I'm going to do a quick demo on the 7 C's of survivability. What that means is the basic things we need to take out in the wilderness with us if we want to survive. When I think about this subject, I think about this book that I saw when I was back in college. And this book was made by a photographer who went across the world, and what he would do is he would ask families to bring out all their possessions that they have, everything they own in their whole life. They would take all their possessions and line them up in front of them, and he would take pictures of the family. Through this book, there's these interesting contrasts between kind of the Western, more westernized society and the more traditional societies. In the Western societies, you would see these families in front of their big house. Their whole lawn was filled with stuff. A lot of times plastic and toys and kind of extra things, not really things that you need day-to-day life. These families would be very proud standing in front of their big house with all of their possessions. In contrast to those Western families, there are a lot of traditional families that had the bare minimum, the bare essentials in what they need in everyday life. They would stand in front of their house as well, and it was a very small hut. And a lot of times they had many children living in that one little hut with them. It always stuck with me. It planted a seed in my mind, and since then I've always been thinking about what do we need as humans to survive? What's the bare minimum? That's kind of what the 7 C's of survivability are about. And in some ways that's very freeing. I've learned that when you do cut those things out and you do realize what you can survive on, how little you can survive on, it's so freeing. The old Buddhist idea of what you own ends up owning you. So let's get into that. Let's take a look at the gear. All right, so let's get into the physical parts. The first C we're going to talk about is a cutting tool. It's talking about knives, hatchets, saws. You want something that's pretty sharp, obviously, can do the job. Generally speaking, when you have a smaller knife like this, it's going to do smaller cutting. I usually personally like to bring in one small knife and a bigger chopper, like a bigger blade like this to do some serious chopping. I'm big into the tomahawk as well. A lot of my gear I've gotten from the Pathfinder school. If you're looking for some good gear, check it out there. Second thing would be a container. Container can be like a basket, but more specifically, a lot of time container refers to something you could drink water out of. So if you find a water source and you're moving, the container comes in handy. I'm a big fan of the stainless steel. I've had this container for a while. It's pretty big, obviously. You can hold a lot of water with it, so you don't have to spend all day focused on boiling your water to make sure it's safe. It's also great for collecting. If I found some berries or something like that, I can kind of throw them in here. The third would be cordage. Cordage is just another way of saying rope or twine, anything that you can tie stuff up with. I highly recommend here I have some paracord. It's durable, it's trusty. You can use it for lots of things. Traps, shelters, tying stuff together, tying your pack. There's a lot of different plants you can make cordage with in the wild. But for the beginner, I would recommend just getting lots of paracord. Never leave home without your paracord. Next item would be combustion. Combustion just meaning to make fire. So here I have my hand drill. So whether it be primitive stuff, if you feel confident in your primitive skills, and you can take that out. But always be safe. Even when I'm relying on my primitive things, I'll usually bring a lighter, a magnesium rod, a couple non-primitive combustion techniques just in case. And the last of the 5 C's is cover. I'm a huge fan of tarps. They're light. They're waterproof. You can set up a shelter and tear it down quickly, and there's not a lot of evidence of it. What we're sitting on here actually too, you can see this is a wool blanket. I'm a big fan of wool for a lot of reasons. When wool gets wet, it still is really good at keeping you warm. So between wool and a tarp, that's a great chance for cover. So it's going to keep you dry, it's going to keep you warm. Clothes are considered cover. Anything that keeps that heat in and maybe the rain out. That's what we call cover. So those are the 5 basic physical things that we want with us. So once again, it's cutting tool, container, cordage, combustion, and cover. Now adding on to those 5 C's, we're going to talk about 2 more C's, kind of the more metaphysical or mental side of surviving. The first one would be curiosity. And so for me, curiosity is about kind of having that childish wonder that leads us to action, to examine things, to look at things more closely. Curiosity opens our mind. It's when we get stagnant in the wilderness, we see things a certain way and we don't really question it. That's when we kind of get in ruts. Just wondering, just having kind of that child wonder, like what's that all about? And then discovering really cool things in the wilderness because of it. The second C, that's kind of metaphysical, is consciousness, or awareness, if you want to call it that. When we go into the wilderness and we're aware of what we're doing, we're mindful of what we're doing, things go better. And whether we're in a survival situation or we're just camping, It's a more enjoyable experience if we're aware of what we're doing, if we're conscious of our actions, of our thoughts. Oh, and there's one more thing that I always like personally to bring out, one more C, and that's contraband. I'm a big tobacco, whiskey kind of guy in the wilderness, and so every now and then I'll bring some of that out. So I'm always making sure I got my 7 C's, and every now and then I'll bring my 8th as well. So that's the basic stuff. I could talk hours about each one of these items, but I'm just trying to give you the general overview. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment if you got any more ideas on what should be added to my list. Check me out on my website, holisticsurvivalschool.com, and find me on Facebook. Thanks for watching.